As I entered the darkness, the night that wrapped itself around my soul filled me with a terror akin to a child's fear of entering a blackened room. I could see nothing before me, and after traveling only a short time, nothing at my back, for the nightland vanished as I continued my descent. When the darkness surrounded me completely, I was nearly overcome by waves of panic. I halted, dropped to my knees, and hugged the earth, scarcely able to breathe, wishing for a light I knew would never come. Welcome back to Heroic Book Adventures. I'm Steve, and today we're taking a look at a retelling of a much older book. Back in 1912, William Hope Hodgson wrote The Nightland. It was a very unique tale, but it had some serious problems with it. I found it almost completely unreadable. The author chose to use a very archaic sort of writing style, kind of like a pseudo Shakespearean sort of thing, but with his own little, tweaks to it. I guess he was trying to, being that the story is set in the far distant future, he was trying to say that this is kind of how people would talk then. But the style of the writing just did not work for me. There was no dialogue in it. The narrator was telling you what the people said, and there was a number of other issues with it that just aren't important to get into right now. But anyways, James Stoddard had saw how wonderful the story was and decided to undertake the project of rewriting it in the way that our modern novels are written, so it's more accessible to a modern audience. And boy, am I glad that he chose to do so. The story starts off actually set in the 1800s, and you have two characters, Andrew and Murdath, and it tells the story of them first meeting and falling in love, and then their life together. So then it fast forward millions of years into the future when the sun is dying. So the surface of the earth is actually uninhabitable, and the humans have went down into, very deepest recesses of the earth to try to find a place to live. So there are just miles and miles below the surface, and they've built this giant pyramid they've called the last redoubt. It's the only place where humans can live because the outside world is just so dangerous. Not only the environmental conditions they have to deal with, but there's all kinds of monsters and creatures out in the nightland surrounding, just waiting for the humans to slip up so they can come and just take out the rest of them there. So we now follow the main character, Andros, who has this talent called the night hearing, where he can hear kind of, sound waves and things moving throughout the nightland. So he actually works within what would be like the control room of the last redoubt. And between him having his hearing and the other people working there having instruments in that where they measure things changing in that, that's kind of what they do and keep an eye out for safety reasons. Well, also Andros keeps having these dreams and visions where he's thinking back to what we know as the 1800s and thinking of his life when he was known as Andrew, and thinking about his love to Murdath, and just thinking about it is just upsetting him, making him cry. He's just not understanding why he's seeing these visions. Well, then one day, Andros hears this message coming from a woman from somewhere out there, and they're picking it up on their instruments. And this woman is named Nani, and she says that she is from a lesser redoubt. Supposedly way back in history, which would still be in our far distant future, a group of people had left the last redoubt and went and formed a lesser redoubt. Now they power these redoubts with the Earth's current. Well, in previous days, there used to be communication. As the Earth's current was stronger, there was communication between the two. But that ceased as the lesser redoubt's current was reducing. They just totally lost contact with each other, and that had been like hundreds of thousands of years in the past. So this was now thought of as a myth that there were actually other people out there. But now Andros is getting these messages from Nani, and she's telling him that we're in a bad situation. Our Earth's current is almost completely gone, and as we're losing power, the monsters surrounding us are just closing in, and we're in extreme danger. Is there anybody out there that can help us? Well, Andros and the other people in the last redoubt are like, well, we can't. It's just too dangerous. Anybody that ventures out into the Nightland just meets a gruesome end. We can't, we don't even know where this place is. So as Andros and Nani keep talking to each other through their talent, she starts saying things, little sayings that are triggering memories in Andros of his Murdath way back in the day. So now it starts coming as they're putting pieces together. They're realizing that these two were actually those lovers, Andrew and Murdath, way back in the 1800s. And now here they are in the far future and have found each other and are communicating, and they know things that only the other one could have possibly known about each other. So after a little while, communication cuts out. And they can only assume the worst has happened to this other group. Well, Andros is just so distraught. He says, there's no way. I've just discovered my long lost love out there, and I'm just going to let her be subjected to be overrun by these monsters, her and her people out there. And he comes to the conclusion that he has to go out on a quest to go find her, out into the Nightland, knowing that it means certain death for him, not knowing where her and the lesser redoubt are, or if they even exist at all. But he still feels he needs to go out on this quest. It is an epic tale, okay? The first thing that needs to be brought up is how incredible the world building is in this. Unfortunately, too many authors feel like in order to create an epic world, it needs to be like a 15-book series. But here, in under 300 pages, is created one of the most unique worlds I have ever seen in any fiction. I mean, it is full of history and lore and incredible geographic features, all kinds of different horrific monsters out there that are not only a danger to their physical beings, but also to their soul. This story was a master class in how to do world building properly without it becoming overly bloated. And the primary driver of the plot is the love story in it. Now, I generally do not like romance stories because to me they're either like really paper thin or they're written, for the erotic arousal of women. And neither of those two extremes really seem to leave a lasting impression on me. But this one was done really, really well, I thought. Because rather than love being treated as like a recreational activity, it's more like these two people care so much for each other that under even the most dire of circumstances, they will do anything it takes to help each other out. It was a love story that was heartbreaking at times. It was very hopeful at others. It was just beautifully done and very satisfying, in my opinion. I really enjoyed this so much. I'm going to give it a 9.5. Okay. It's quite possible that this might turn out to be my favorite read of the year. I really enjoyed it that much. And I feel that if you choose to read this, even if you don't love it quite as much as I did, this will still be a story that you will never forget. You cannot forget how dangerous the world of the Nightland is. You cannot forget the wonderful love story of soulmates searching for each other throughout the ages. It's just epic in scope. Um, if there's one minor complaint I have is that during the quest section of it, it can get a little bit repetitive at times. But I think that's a minor complaint because actually it felt like you were really kind of suffering along on this quest, and it ends up meeting a final conclusion that is very satisfying. So it was still very much worth it, I thought. I have to give a round of applause here to William Hope Hodgson for writing such an incredible story way back in 1912. And I want to give a thank you to James Stoddard, who recognized just how good this story was and for undertaking the project of rewriting it in such a way so us modern readers can enjoy it as well. I'm going to keep pumping the tires on this one because I too agree that this is just way too good of a story for it to just simply be lost to history. Okay, this was a fantastic read. And I will see you romantic heroes again on our next adventure through the monster-filled darkness.